Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Things Pilates. I'm Darian Gold. There is a new Pilates book on the minds of Pilates teachers and students. It's called Caged Lion, and it's part biographical, part historical, and even part controversial. The author, John Steele, is our guest, and he's here to talk about his book, why he wrote it, and what has happened since its publication. We'll hear snippets about his unique friendship with Joe, what it was like to learn Contrology from Joe, and how through John's focused determination achieved almost the impossible, helping to rebirth an obscure exercise method destined to depart with its creator, Joe Pilates. To give you a hint of Caged Lion, because I want you all to get the book and read John's story for yourselves, John describes his firsthand experiences with amazing clarity, so much so you actually feel as if you're right there with him. His sharp wit keeps you wondering how the Joe story is going to end. I had laugh-out-loud moments and a few eyebrow-raising ones as well. John's book has it all: mystery, intrigue, sex, manipulation, resolution, and new beginnings. It's written in the first person, and his honest and unapologetic account make this book a fascinating read. I have so many questions for John that I've divided them into two parts. I know he will answer these questions with his usual candor and clarity. So without further ado, hi, John.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm well. Thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
John, why did you write this book?
I wrote the book for several reasons, one of which was that this was a part of my life, a big part of my life, that had actually almost disappeared from the great success of Pilates. And I discovered when I did the keynote address at the PMA in 2007 that very few people knew even that there was a man named Pilates, much less what he did or what influence he had on what they were teaching. So I wrote it to inform people of that. I wrote it to resurrect the importance of Joe himself. I just wanted to get his life back into Pilates. I wrote it in a way that I thought would help teachers teach, because one of the things that very few people knew about Joe, even those that studied with him, they didn't realize what a great teacher he was, how brilliant he was at getting people to do what he thought they should do with very few words. I also wrote it because I love to write. Hadn't written a book before, hadn't even thought about writing a book before, but I wrote a lot professionally, and that was a different kind of writing, legal writing. And that was a problem for me when I got started writing this book. I couldn't get my inner lawyer out of me. It took me years to conquer that inner lawyer. But, I had no idea really what would happen with this book or what shape it would take when I started to write it. I just felt it had to be done, and I had to do it. And that's what I did.
How has Caged Lion been received?
Well, in the Pilates community, which I mean the professional, the teachers like you and studio owners, I think it's been received great. I mean, I get 4 or 5 emails a day. I'm reading your book. I love it. Your introduction, for which I haven't thanked you yet, but I have to. I mean, that's just great. I hear that constantly. People do laugh. I've gotten several emails where they've cried, and I write back and say, that's fine. I've cried too when I wrote that part. So, yeah, I think in the community it's been received wonderfully. But my hope when I wrote it was that all the professionals would get it and see it and read it, and then they would talk to the students. And that would be a wonderful way of, there's 10 million students in this country alone. But of course, that has pretty much dried up. And I'm very grateful to what you're doing, which is giving me a chance to have other people learn about the book.
Were there any comments that you didn't anticipate that maybe you'd like to share with us?
I think I anticipated worse than I got. I thought there would be problems related to Romana's family, who I knew. I mean, I knew Sherry and Paul quite well, and I haven't heard a word from them. I did anticipate trouble from one source. I got it. It's been a very minor incident, I think. It hasn't really been much of a disturbance. And actually, when it happened, which was, of course, online, on social media, all of a sudden, about 4 or 5 people who'd read the book, who I never had met, jumped to my defense. So that felt great.
Speaking of jumping, let's jump into Joe's studio. When you first began lessons there, you describe a moment in the book where there was something buried in the routine. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Buried in the routine is a very important thing for me. I didn't know exactly why I came back second time. And, if you read the book, you'll understand why that was even an issue. The first time ended up dramatically bad, I mean, difficult. And I came back and I never really understood why. And again, to answer the first question, one of the reasons I wrote the book was to actually find out a lot of these things about myself. There was something in the routine that first day that my body said, you need more of this. This is good for you. This is going to help you. And you need it, and you're going back. So I went back. It was a very close call. I think what really got me back was some involuntary force that came out of this very thing. In fact, when Joe asked me he didn't ask me. When I left the studio, and I point this out in the book, when I left the studio after that very difficult first day, he assumed I would be back. He said, I will see you at 7, 2 days hence. If this was Tuesday, I'll see you at 7 o'clock on Thursday. And I nodded my head, okay. Why I did that, I have no idea. But I did do it. And that was the same force that made me show up at that 7 o'clock a.m. The following couple of days. So, yes, there is something in the routine, and it's not me. It's 10 million, 20 million people that are affected by this. And you can ask hundreds of people, so why do you go back? And they will say, well, it makes me feel better, or I like it, or, my friends are there, and and they don't think much about it, but they are drawn back to it by a force that, that's there in this routine. It does something to you inside. And I try to explain it with this reference to a psychologist whose name no one in the whole world can pronounce, but his name is Csikszentmihalyi. Csikszentmihalyi. His first name is Mihaila. So it's Mihaila Csikszentmihalyi. And he wrote a wonderful book called Flow, mostly for psychiatrists or psychologists. And he does explain a little of what that force is.
I love it. See, that was a nice answer, right?
Well, it's a lot of answer there.
Yes, it is. You write that Joe was interested in keeping you moving, even when you struggled with trying to figure out the spring setting, how to use the straps properly. He just wanted to keep you moving. That reminds me of Romana for sure. But at some point, you say that you fell into his rhythm, and that struck me. And I wanted to know, what was it about? Was it his rhythm verbally, or his body? What did you mean by his rhythm?
Well, good question, because again, when I was doing it, I didn't think much about it. And then when I had to write about it, from the minute you walked into his gym to the minute you left, you were there to work. And you had to keep moving. You were not allowed to sit anywhere and watch anyone. You were not allowed to stand anywhere. You couldn't stop and talk. You couldn't have water for yourself. You just kept going. And you want to know how he got you to do that. There was a lot of verbal commands, in the sense that he kept telling you what to do. Sit here, move there, legs there. Very short commands, no big explanations, but he kept the pace going. And the routine itself didn't consist of 24 separate movements, or 48 or 6, whatever number you want to pick. It consisted of starting on the apparatus, which was preferably always the reformer, and finishing to the end. Everything in between was as much part of the contrology as the actual choreographed exercise. And the only analogy that I think makes it very clear to people is if you look at a musical score. There are notes and there are spaces between the notes. Both are music. It's not just the note, it's the space and the note. And that's what a routine on any of his apparatus, including the mat, was then. So that's what I meant, if that's an explanation.
That's not an easy concept. I don't know if everyone would be able to articulate that right away, because it is like music, because in the silences, that's maybe where the music is the fullest.
That's correct. And when you move from the 100 to leg circles, if that's the order you're going to do it, and you go to grab the straps and you change the springs, you had to move at the same pace you were doing the 100 at, or you were going to do leg circles at. It may have been a different beat. In other words, your 100 is boom, 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 and your leg circles are yeah, yeah. But the rhythm was still there. One were eighth notes, one were 16th notes, one were quarter notes. So the whole thing moved with this rhythm that he got you to do. And just like when you go out on the dance floor, sometimes the first 10 movements of whatever you're doing, you're a little stiff and you may be offbeat and you step on your partner's toes. But after a few minutes, you drop into the rhythm of the music. And that's what I meant when I said I dropped into his rhythm.
It's beautiful. Okay, from the workout to the shower, in the studio.
Same rhythm.
So people were supposed to shower after the workout, and Joe insisted that everyone use this specific type of soap and brush that he supplied. How did people handle that experience?
They mostly ignored it. And that soap was very harsh. The brush was very stiff, and he now and then he jumped in the shower, which he did with me and he did with Mary Bowen, and obviously he did with other people as well. So, but he couldn't be in the shower with you all the time. And people, I'm sure, brought their own soap. I did not. Whether they used the brush or not, I didn't jump in the shower with anyone. Probably would have had a little more fun some of the days had I, but I didn't. And I still use a stiff brush and pretty, not too fancy soap, and it makes, I think, a difference. He was right. Now people put on stuff to exfoliate themselves or whatever. That brush did everything you needed to do. You came out pink if you were white. If you were not white, you came out a deeper color of yourself. So
This was an overall philosophy in the Contrology system than caring for your skin. I guess he felt that the skin was
hey,
part of the whole thing.
no, it wasn't broken into parts. Joe saw your whole life as a caring for your system. You should walk a certain way, you should sit a certain way, you should sleep a certain way, even to develop that bednasium, that gym in the bed thing. He saw it all as one thing, that you were scrubbing your body was no more important or less important than doing the 100. I mean, exercise was not how I think, compartmentalize it now. It wasn't a separate thing you do. It was how you lived in his mind. And if you can, and that's what I keep thinking is what's buried deep in Contrology, that need to feel that connection all the time, not just when you're in the gym or taking a class or even now virtual class. It's there all the time. You get up and take a walk, you should be doing Contrology in Joe's mind and in my mind now. But, I don't think you have to bang people over the head with that if they don't. A lot of people do it, though. I mean, I speak to people about, so does this stick with you? Oh, yeah. When I take a walk, I pull my shoulders back, I drop them down. I'm conscious of my whole body.
Clara, will you tell us about her and how was she as a teacher?
Well, that's a very difficult question. Her presence was very important. I think I'm trying to recall, when she and Joe were together in the gym, he took all the air, all of it. There wasn't a drop left for anybody. So they were helpers, and they kind of did, what they thought he wanted to have done. But they never were the teacher. So in your studio, you can teach, and you may have two or three other teachers there. They could be independent contractors. They could be employees of yours. They have their own clients. They teach separate classes. They teach privates, whatever. And I see that in many, many studios. That's not how it was there. It was only Joe. Then, after Joe died, John Winter and Hannah Sakamura, they sort of did the teaching, but there was no one to teach. The 50 or so of us, if there were even that many, who continued on with the work, all knew it extremely well by then. No new people came in during that period. When Ramana took over, she was a gifted teacher. She was a ballet teacher. She knew the body extremely well. She knew movement extremely well. She had a very energetic and quite commanding presence. You listen to her. Everyone who, has been trained by her remembers that so well. She really was a gifted teacher in a very different style than Joe. Clara kept coming to the new studio, and she was in the old studio after Joe died. She'd come in, not an awful lot, but she'd be there. But she didn't really, start with a new pupil or a new student, a new student, and indoctrinate him. I never saw her do that. She did take over. There were certain people who didn't get along well with Joe.
Oh, gee. I wonder why.
Well, there were. And she would sense that, and she'd be a wonderful backup for that. And she would take over and help them learn the routine. But in answer to your question, she wasn't a Ramana. She was certainly not a Joe. Had she had to do it all by herself, she couldn't have done it. But she's a wonderful person.
And ultimately, that was most important, and that you all helped her and took care of her towards the end.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
You describe in the book that you and Joe spent time walking, and as you describe, almost power walking the streets of New York City. And one time, Joe said something I know you'll never forget, but he had never said it before. Sex is as important as contrology. And I was wondering if you could take us back to that moment when he said that.
Well, that gets pretty personal, and I think it is with everyone. First place, let's put that back into that same context. Everything was
Contrology.
part of your life. Yes, that's right. Whether you're walking or whether you're having sex or whatever you're doing was all taking a shower was all lumped into the same rules for living, let's call them, return to life. I don't know where he'd been that he had to return to life, but he felt that life was contrology. So when he said sex was as important as contrology, what I heard in my head was, wow, coming from him, nothing could be as important as contrology, but here it is, sex. So originally I was a little perplexed by why he brought it up or how it happened. And again, I'm reconstructing in my mind what happened in 1964. So that's a long time ago. That's 56 years ago. And then, I got a little worried because I, he hadn't ever asked me about my own life, my own relationship. He knew my wife didn't come in. And that bothered him to some extent. Why doesn't your wife come in? He might have asked me sometimes. So I was a little like, oh, something bad's going to happen.
She wasn't interested at all in working her body that way? Your wife at the time?
Uh,
Or she didn't want to be near you?
well, no one outside, no one outside of the small group people was. I mean, she didn't know what it was really. She wasn't interested. She was interested in other things, and most people weren't. If I said to someone at the office, "Where are you going?" If they asked me at 5 o'clock, I said, "I'm going to go, do a session with Joseph." What's that? And I try to explain it. They'd look at you like, well, you're really strange. And no one knew anything about this. Or, the ballet world did, New York ballet world did, but no one else did.
So your sex life.
Oh, my sex life. Let's stay away from that.
But Joe, well, it leads me to that other question, which was the two inventions, the magic circle and the V bed.
Yeah.
With that in mind, with sexuality being part of this whole Contrology system, and
oh, sure. Well, yes, we got into my problem and at home, and we got into his solution for my problem at home, which was really a very important thing for me, just to be aware that Jewish guilt, goodbye. I mean, basically, that's what it was. So, in terms of the magic circle, yes, that's sort of a joke. But in terms of his concept that if he could make his system of exercises feel to the people doing it like they felt when they were having sex, he could sell it. People would go for it. I mean, he was well aware, even given the shift from German culture, which was very strongly oriented toward going to the gym and getting in shape and hard work and all that. If he could get from that to the American kind of casualness about everything, and you don't have to work out. Don't bother with that. If he could get that German thing over, and he thought he came up with this thought that he expressed to me as this big dark secret, which I hadn't thought much about, that if he could get the movements in his program to emulate the movements of sexual intercourse, he would really have something. And he did. And I have, maybe for 20 years, if I've been in a studio and gotten it all close to a teacher, and something would come up, I say, well, it's all about sex. And they would always sort of jump back and say, what do you mean? I say, everything you're teaching, everything I'm doing is all about sex. And it's not that you're training people for sex, it's that you're doing things that feel good when you're having sex, they remind you of those positions. It's that. And it prepares you to have better sex. And they would always jump back instantly, as I just said. But after a few moments of reflection and visualization, I mean, when you see the Pilates, the basic mat work or basic reformer work, when you see what's going on with that, take a look at one of the pictures behind you with that lady with her leg in the air. I mean, these are
that's no lady, that's me.
Well, you're a lady. That's a beautiful picture. But the point being, that relation happens subliminally to people, and he knew it. And he never made a point of it. He never tried to sell it that way. But he knew he was instilling in you that good feeling. And that's what that was all about. And I think people, I've got no comments other than from you or questions. And so that tells me a little about you, Darian Gold, but that's good. But the point is, people have accepted that as being the truth. There's something there. The magic circle thing, that's his joke. I mean, I had several German clients in my career, and they all had this wonderful sense of humor. There was always some little joke within a joke, and the magic circle is a joke. And I explain why in the book, and I think I should leave it there.
Yes. Well, I know so many people are going to get this book after this airs. I think already about 6 people that I know, they've already gotten the book from you.
Good.
Okay, so besides sex, you and Joe also spent time at Central Park Zoo. What was that about? What was the attraction for Joe?
Well, that is at the very core of him. And that's why I concluded that he developed these exercises while he was incarcerated on the Isle of Man. He would absolutely concentrate on watching large cats, mostly lions and tigers, exercise in confinement. He would watch how they stretched and watched how they moved and watch everything. And he was convinced in his mind, and I certainly agreed watching him, and he'd constantly be nudging me he wouldn't say anything, but I should watch that. Convinced that they had developed through natural instinct the perfect way to stretch their bodies in confinement. And even Return to Life, when you read it, a certain light, Return to Life is all about living in a big city. People think it's just, it's a general book. It isn't. It's about combating modern city life. And when he'd see a tiger, or particularly lions, combating what he saw them living in apartments, counterparts of apartments, their cage, and how they kept themselves healthy, he thought that's what everyone has to do who lives here in New York. And he'd study it. He'd see the stretch. He'd see their body move. He'd see how they got their muscles to work right. And that's what that was about. He was fascinated by that. And that's why I named the book.
Did you see that? Did you see that in that experience with Kim, or did he have to explain it to you, or did you get that right away?
Joe didn't explain anything ever to anyone. So he didn't explain that to me. But I saw when he would nudge me, you could see, for example, this is an extreme example. A lion will turn over on its back and occasionally, and you think it's rubbing its back. You'll see your cat or your dog do it out on the lawn. But you could actually see the lion trying to do the teaser or the 100. You could actually see them move their arms in rhythm or try to bend their spine or use their head. And he that's what he would give me the elbow for. And I'd look, and there it was. Now, it wasn't like Jane Fonda on the top of the box on a reformer doing the teaser, but it was an animal trying to get its body conditioned. So that was that.
That's fascinating. Truly.
It was. I didn't realize much at the time. I'm just sitting with him, and I think, oh, this, okay, all right. So they do the 100, big deal. Because, no one back then had any idea that Pilates was going to be what it is today.
Yes, yes. There was a teacher, his assistant named Hannah, and you mentioned her before, Hannah Sakamurda. And
Yeah.
everyone had to go through her first, correct?
No.
Not everyone had to
no.
work with her first?
Never. No. Most people, when they came in, worked with Joe first.
Oh.
He worked with you first, and afterwards, he helped. I think. I mean, for some reason, I didn't have a typical experience. He stayed with me a long time. There was something there. He sensed something about me that to this day I kind of think was a bit uncanny. He somehow knew that I'd be there afterwards. Why me? I have no idea, because I certainly wasn't training to be a teacher or anything. But anyhow, he stayed with me a little longer. I think he was surprised by me. He saw this sort of preppy, upper middle class, kind of bratty kid. And yet he's trying really hard to do this. That surprised him. So he stayed with me longer. So I really can't talk about a lot of other people that started at the same time I did. Very few did anyhow. In fact, I don't recall anyone, but so I don't know. So he could have started with someone and turned them over to John or Hannah early on, and then they would help them learn the exercise. But the goal was for everyone to become self-sufficient as fast as possible.
He wanted lots of bodies in the studio, everyone knowing his routine, and then everyone working out on their own.
Yeah. He wanted it's a self-destructive business practice. I mean, it's guaranteed to put you out of business as quickly as you went in. You teach everybody how to do it. You show them how to buy a machine. You tell them to do it at home for half an hour every morning, and they'll never show up again. You have no clients. I mean, that was the crazy thing about this whole thing. But of course, in those days, you couldn't buy a machine very easily. He was the only one that really made them or had them made. And people didn't work out at home and didn't have gyms, and we were in New York. So it wasn't that they were going to go somewhere else then, but now, of course, they would. So
No. So it's not like Hannah and John did anything different. They prepared people to do their own workout, those who didn't get the opportunity to work with Joe or Clara, correct?
Joe and Clara were there. Joe was there a lot. Clara was there a lot, not all the time. And they wandered around. They drifted around. I mean, it wasn't like they were drifting. They went from person to person to person. They'd look over here. They'd see someone isn't doing the leg circles with the toes pointed or something. And Clara or Joe would come over and tap you on the foot or in the arch or somewhere. And, oh, yeah, point my toes. Yeah, point my toes. So you point your toes, or you straighten up, or you bend over, you do. So they were always moving around. I mean, they never still. And Hannah and Bob Seed and John and several other people from time to time would be doing the same. No one had any teacher attached to them. It was all free agency. So if you really got stuck on them, on what to do after you did the leg circles or something, and you went up and looked at the pictures on the wall, and you still couldn't quite figure it out, or having a problem, and you're really stuck, then Hannah or Clara, never Joe, would come over, John, and say, it's the teaser, or it's a long box now. It's a long box. They kind of slip you that, it's like a college, high school exam where someone next to you says, the answer to number 3 is 7. Uh, it was, you weren't allowed to talk or make noise or ask questions. So that's how it was. And you learn fast. I mean, it's surprising. I still do the exact same routine I did 1963.
Have you ever filmed yourself?
No, no. I mean, I've seen enough horror movies. I don't have to do that.
That would be, well, how cool would that be that the author of Caged Lion is practicing Joe's work? That would be fantastic. Come on.
Well, of course I am. Yeah.
I mean, for the world to
it's
see, John. Think about it.
the world, there's too much of me to see now. Back in the day, yes, but not now.
Hey, podcast listeners. I hope you're really enjoying my interview with John. We'll get back to it shortly, but I wanted to take this chance to invite you to a special Pilates group class. September is my birthday month, and for this year, I'm giving a complimentary Zoom class. All you have to do is email Darian at dariangold.com, and we'll put you on the birthday list. It will be the usual hour class, plus a little wine after. We've all spent so many months sheltering at home. It's our chance to gather and catch up. I sure hope you can join us. Now back to my conversation with John. Jumping ahead, this is after Joe had passed away. So that's a few more chapters in. It's a fabulous book, everyone. I know you're all going to get it. Joe is gone, and there are a group of you, the students that you talked about, 50 or so, that needed Contrology in their lives, but you needed a new Joe. You needed a new studio leader, and Clara needed help. Correct? Can you talk about this time?
Yeah, well, Clara didn't need help. She needed money. So she needed
Support.
income. Yeah. And she did need help also, but she could take care of herself.
But she was teaching still, correct?
Well, you say teaching,
Or,
you're using
okay,
a
modern.
modern concept. She was there in the studio, but she wasn't. There was no real intake at that point. Nobody knew was coming in that I can remember anyhow. So we were all a bunch of people that knew the work pretty well. Some of them had been doing it for 15 years by then, and had come 2 or 3 times a week during that entire period.
Wow.
And yeah, they liked to get a push when they were doing spine stretch forward, or a little help with this, a little help with that, and corrections. And she was there, Clara, but she had very poor vision, and we just kept the thing going like it was our little club, really. And there were maybe 50 people, but of the 50, only about 8 of us were active in keeping it going. We expanded it a little. We always wanted to expand it, but people just wanted to come up and do their thing and go home. And we expanded it a little, but when we moved, because everyone got excited about that, and but we didn't have a captain of the ship.
And then in 1972 ish, you met with
Yes.
Romana Kryzanowska.
Well, it was about, he died in 67. So it was, pretty close to 70 when I started on the quest for
A new leader.
a new leader. Yeah.
When you met Romana and you started discussing whether or not she would be the new Joe or the new, let's say, new studio leader, you describe her as arrogant and a diva, but you also called her brilliant. And I know social media lit up about some of your descriptions of Romana. How have you handled those comments? And I know that you spoke about that earlier. Is there anything that was said that was either completely false or that they just have been misinformed because it's like the telephone tag game? You hear one thing and then it goes
Yeah.
around the table, right?
Well, I tried in the book to give a realistic, from my perspective, I mean, a picture of Romana's contribution. And I think I made it exceptionally clear that without Romana, this whole thing would have died on the vine. There was no question in my mind that she was the last leaf here. That's the name of my company that publishes this book. She was the last possible person to do it. And she did a magnificent job. What she did was fantastic. But Romana, to give an accurate picture of her, I felt that you had to talk about the problems. And down the road, years and years later, I mean, this is, let's say, 70, starting in around 90, 20 years later, she was a participant or the source or the colleague of a terrible destructive force that was being unleashed on Pilates, which had just started to come out of its chrysalis. It just had started to bloom for the first time. And I don't mean the first time since Joe died, for the first time ever. It was blooming. Ron Fletcher had it going really well on the West Coast. We had someone making equipment as a real business. We had people in Santa Fe, people in Boulder, people teaching it. And it all of a sudden, it just like, a butterfly, it had come out of the, whatever they come out of, and there it was. And this force became unleashed, and Romana got caught up in it. And I thought in the book it was important to remember that she was, had that in her from the beginning. And the reason I believe she took the job is that I was able to appeal to that sense of hers of being a diva, being really important, being on center stage. And it sunk in, and she acted that out through the rest of her life, which was a great thing for Pilates because she brought unbelievable energy to it from 72 to 84, whatever it was when Aris Isotoner bought it. And without that energy and that skill she had as a ballet teacher and knowledge of the body, would have gone away. It did go away, but it left an impression. There are people out there that kept it going, Ron Fletcher being one of them, but not Joan, just dropped your name. She'll be very angry.
Breitbart?
What? Yes, Joan Breitbart and the crew in Santa Fe and out west. They kept it going. And I think a lot of that was from what they got from Romana. Yeah. So when this terrible thing happened and when we got to court, and she is saying to the judge that she's the only one that can tell if it is Pilates or not Pilates, and that she has to have control of this trademark, and that's what Joe wanted. And I'm sitting there saying, oh my God, this can't be. I mean, no. And I called her an imposter, which I think is true. It was true. Well, I did get a lot of flack on that, and I answered it as quickly as I could. I didn't want to get in a fight with anyone. And a lot of people said, yeah, read the preface. He says this is his impression of what was going on. Was going on. And, so I got people coming to my defense, and it was not the fuss that lasted very long.
I'm curious, when in the book you talk about Romana selling apparatus because it was becoming more, this work started getting out of control. More and more people wanted to open their own studios. Which company did she?
Gratz.
Oh, I see. Okay. So from the very beginning, she was selling Gratz Industries Incorporated apparatus at that time period, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't Gratz Industries. It was just Don Gratz. It was small potatoes at first. And when Ron Fletcher opened in Los Angeles, the original idea was that he would get his equipment through Romana. And Romana was extremely resistant to his whole project. And one of the, I was almost saying tricks. One of the only carrots I put in front of her to get her to relax about this, because she was a half owner of the studio, was to say, look, he's going to want equipment. How about if you get the commission personally on that? And she liked that idea. He didn't buy the equipment through her. I don't know what happened during the negotiations. I can guess that it was not very friendly, that she made it really hard on him. And we have Ken Edelman and Balanced Body as a result of that. He asked Clara for a drawing of the equipment. She sent it to him. It's been lost, that particular drawing. There's a copy of it Ken has. And she went to Ken, and he made the equipment to Clara's drawing specifications. But other people around New York wanted to open more studios at home kind of thing. And the deal that I thought I had with Romana was that the company, the 939 Studio Corporation, would sell the equipment, and she'd get a commission, 10%, because she actually sold it. But what happened, and we did do a few of those, I'm sure, but what happened was she started to sell it all on the side. So she'd get Gratz to make it for X dollars, and she'd charge whatever she wanted. And when I found that out later, I was, disturbed by it. It wasn't right. But No one on our side cared much about the money. What we cared about was that it kept going. And
It has.
yeah, but it certainly didn't then. It died twice. Died with Aris isotoner, Stanton, died with Wetai. So
But Joe
gone.
knew something, obviously, because through those two experiences, it's still alive. It's maybe it had to go through those two deaths.
I think it did. I think it was waiting. It was waiting for a combination of two or three things. It was good that Romana kept the basic choreography intact. And during that period, that was a book that was written by the
Philip.
Philip, yes, right. And they kept it going. They worked very hard with Romana on that. The pictures are there. So you could see that it was very, very close to the Return for Life pictures. I mean, it wasn't the same, but it was close. And there were a lot of people that went through Romana's stuff that had it very close. So we kept it within that confine. And then it was waiting for someone like Ron. And, he's always been a sort of beloved figure in the PMA Pilates world, but I don't think anyone really gave him the credit. And again, he didn't do it. Oh boy, I'm going to keep Joe's legacy alive. Oh boy, I'm going to keep this alive. He didn't do it for that reason. He did it because he loved what he was doing about it. He loved his work. He loved how it has straightened his life out. It really did. And used his talents. He found Ken and he found celebrities, and that was the spark it was waiting for. And of course, the press and the paparazzi, and you walk out onto Wilshire Boulevard, where it was at the time. It's moved since. And there were paparazzi waiting to see if Fonda was coming out or Natalie Wood or who. Yeah, that was so. And that was great for Pilates and LA.
What's your fondest memory of Ron?
It's not fond, but my memory.
Okay.
But it's not bad either. I negotiated the deal with Ron where he paid Clara $5,000 a month. It's all done by paper. He was already in Los Angeles. Clara had told him that it was going to be okay. And he said, fine. And then she said, but I want you to have something from John, me, and he'll draw it up and get in touch with you, which I did. 2 pages. I can't find the copy. It's embarrassing. But it was 2 pages. It was about the $5,000 a month. It was that we would come out. Clara would come out once a month to make sure he was adhering. And Romana insisted on that, adhering to basic Joe's program and choreography. And we would help get him equipment, and he could use the name and which he didn't. But I sent it to him. He signed it and sent it back in 5 minutes. That was my first thing. Then a couple of months down the road, I tried to get Clara to go out. I was going to go with her because I said, we have an obligation and let's do it. Let's see what he's doing. Okay. And so I made reservations, and it was probably a month or so later. But she got cold feet, and it was hard for her to get through an airport, I could tell you. And I was concerned about it, but we were going to do it. So then she said, no, you go. So I said, he's not going to like that. He wants to see you. Who am I? She says, I'll tell him you go. And she did. And I called him, and he was ice cold. Uh, like, why are you coming? What do you know? I mean, I was a lawyer. All these people, Romana looked at me, well, what the hell is this lawyer doing in the midst of this beautiful ballet-like thing? And what does he know? And so, and his attitude was equally bad toward me. I said, all right, I'll tell you what, because I could just feel the chill. I said, how about a private? Can I have a private with you? He said, oh, sure. So I booked a private with him. I flew out there. I went to the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, which was catty corner across the street. I showed up on time, and I got there wearing my little Beverly Hills trunks and Beverly Hills t-shirt and probably Beverly Hills sneakers. And I was ready to go and kind of looking forward to it. And he was talking to some woman who I didn't recognize because I'm not good at that at all. He said, listen, can you work by yourself? That was the greeting. I said, sure. He says, go ahead, I'll catch up with you. So I got down on a reformer. He had them in sort of little groups. He had them like in twos. I got down on one, and the lady who was talking to put on the one next to me. It was Raquel Welch. And here I am, full of
testosterone,
30-year hormones, and I've got Raquel Welch next to me. It was pretty hard to concentrate and remember the choreography. And he did come over sort of in the middle. He was rather impressed with
your knowledge
that I could just sit down and completely do it. But I could tell how he was working with Welch, that it was a lot different than Joe. And the routine was somewhat the same. You could, see points in it that were exactly the same, which, of course, when she did leg circles, that was disturbing for the guy next door. So, but you can see that. But you can also see there were other things. The red towel came out when she was done. He made her do some twisty stuff with the red towel. And I saw it. And you could see that he was very strict with her. She had to do it his way, but he had a playfulness about him. He had a different appeal to her than Joe would have. So I thought, and a lot of things had changed in between. As I say, there were spots, like you could see the 100, or the leg circle, you could see something down the line that was the same, but there was stuff in between that was different. Twisty, bendy stuff, fun stuff, actually.
That's a great memory, because how can you not forget Raquel Welch, right? And that being next to her and just being exposed probably for the first time, new movement being introduced into Joe's work.
Well, that's being conscious of the new movement. I mean, there was plenty of new movement from Romana, but we paid no attention to it. She was big on turnouts and this, and there were a lot of ballet stuff that went into it. She used words that we never, core, stuff like that we didn't use.
What did you use
before?
He just used abdomen or
gut, belly, or poke you in the stomach. I mean, it was a very subtle change. So instead of, he didn't call it Pilates V. I mean, heels together, toes apart. That was it. She says Pilates V. Or if she had a ballet person, second position or something, she'd say. So all these things were happening But we didn't give a damn. We were doing what Joe taught us to do. We had John there to help. We had Hannah there to help. We had Ramona there to help. And she didn't interfere with any of us when we did our stuff. But when she had her ballet people or the few new people that she had, she, would do the core and your powerhouse and your this and your that. But she didn't use technical terms either. I mean, you go to
Anatomy.
a studio now and someone says your glutes, you're this, you're that. There were no glutes. It was your butt.
Even to today, you still practice.
Yeah, I'm about to get a reformer. I'm convinced I got to do that.
Fantastic. John, it's been such a pleasure meeting you and listening to your stories. I know people are, if they haven't bought the book, they're going to buy the book. How do they go about that?
Well, there's several ways. The easiest way, of course, is Amazon. Click and boom, shows up. I think what's really good for everybody is if they have a good local bookstore. There is a very good local bookstore here in Santa Barbara, Chaucer's. You can call them. They will order the book and mail it to you. I am figuring out, there's a program where I can direct sales through a thing from my website.
And your website is, what is your website?
JohnHowardSteele.com.
Right?
.com, yeah. .com /book. And then you'll get right to Caged Lion. There's a way I can direct them to local bookstores through Ingram. I haven't got it set up yet, but the quickest way is Amazon. Their local bookstore can get it. It's available through local bookstore knows how to do it. I'm all for local bookstores.
And soon you'll be doing Audible.
I'm sitting here with my fancy mic like yours, trying to figure out with your sound engineer how to record it. To meet Audible's very difficult standards.
You'll do it. You'll get it done. It'll be fabulous, John. Well, I wish you continued success, John. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, well, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for your boost here and your wonderful introduction.
Take care, John.
Bye.
I hope you learned some new Joe history. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to write a review and tell your friends about this podcast. All Things Pilates is produced and hosted by me, Darian Gold. Podcast production is provided by Audio Ephemera.
I'm Andy, the audio engineer for All Things Pilates, and I'm also a student of Darian's. My Pilates practice has strengthened my core and, more importantly, given me a new awareness of my body and its abilities. Darian doesn't hold back, but it's fun, and I always leave my sessions feeling energized. And I'm not the only one.
Darian is more than just a teacher. She is committed to seeing you improve and get results from your working with her. Even her group online classes make you feel like she is working one-on-one with you. You can just feel her index finger poking through the screen into your gut, telling you to pull your belly in. Whether you work with Darian live or online, she will always be challenging and fun. Yes, she's more than just a teacher. She's also an investor in your well-being.
Darian's Pilates knowledge, experience, personality, cueing and expert eye are second to none. Every session is a complete delight, and I learn so much every time. Darian's teaching involves the whole body and the whole mind, and is an experience I would never want to miss. I am much more in tune with my body, much more aware of how I use it, and much more appreciative of what it does for me. I feel energized, focused, and very happy.
Visit DarianGold.com to view her online class schedule. Also, try one of her apps, available on the App Store or Google Play. And to keep up with Darian and all her new interviews, subscribe to this podcast.
Until next time, take time to read.